Democrats have just been caught red-handed funneling dark money to liberal influencers. This is going to change the political media landscape forever. Because this isn't just about neoliberal slush funds paying off some content creators. It goes straight to the heart of why the left is losing right now and what we need to do to win. So in this video, I'm going to break down this story and show you exactly why shady partnerships like this are killing the left. Plus, I'm going to lay out the method for building independent media that actually connects with working people. And I know this playbook works because over the past 5 years, I've done millions of views and built an audience of hundreds of thousands of followers using this exact same method. All right, now first, before anything else, we need to understand what the left is. Because if you're not crystal clear about what you're fighting for, you won't make any progress. And you won't be able to truly understand why these dark money media operations are such a problem. This is a super critical step, and most people totally skip it. Now, let me ask you a question. What do all these things have in common? Social Security, the New Deal, labor laws, the 40-hour work week, sick leave, parental leave, universal health care in some countries, civil rights, women's rights, and the weekend. No, not that weekend. The answer is that these are all historical achievements of the left, and they were all made possible by a strong labor movement which had the leverage to actually make demands. Because without a labor movement, you're just a bunch of people holding signs. But with the labor movement, you can threaten to disrupt the flow of profits and leverage that to actually win material gains. This is what has defined the left as a political current for the past 150 years. Working people coming together to confront capitalism. So why am I giving you this history lesson? Because once you have a firm understanding of what the left is, you'll get why taking cash like this is such a big problem. Because you're taking money directly from the people you're supposed to be opposing. Let me explain. The group behind this influence campaign is called the 1630 Fund, which is basically a neoliberal nonprofit. And their front group, Chorus, wrote the contract so that influencers couldn't even acknowledge they were part of the program. Spooky. Plus, this group required creators to attend daily messaging check-ins and required all bookings with lawmakers to go directly through Chorus. By the way, I don't have any insider information on this. I'm just paraphrasing from the original article. I'll link it in the description so you can read it for yourself. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. This story gets even more suspicious when you look into who's funding this. According to NBC, just 4 donors accounted for close to 2/3 of the 1630 Fund's revenue in 2023 alone. The largest donor gave over $50 million, another gave $31 million, a third gave over $21 million, and the last gave over $13 million. That information is straight from the tax filing. Now, let those big numbers just marinate in your head for a second. If I generously assume that you're making $100,000 a year post-tax, it would take you 1,150 years to accumulate enough cash to match what's been donated to the 1630 Fund by these 4 individuals. Good luck. Have fun meeting the Vikings. So yeah, that's a lot of money. The only question is, where's it coming from? Well, because of the way the organization is set up, we have literally no idea who these people are or what their goals are. However, I think we can safely assume from the massive amounts they're donating that these people aren't workers. They're owners. But hold on, what's the problem with all this? I mean, sure, a liberal group got some money from rich people, who cares? Well, if you dig a little deeper, you'll see how incidents like this expose the single biggest issue that is crippling the left right now. This point is super critical, but in order to understand it, we need some more theory. So stick with me. Think back to what I said earlier. What defines the left? It means working people coming together to confront capitalism. But here's the thing. Confronting capitalism means confronting capitalists. And I don't just mean supporters of capitalism when I say that. When I say capitalists, I mean people who make a living by owning a part of the economy, whether that be a factory, a mine, or an office building. If you look at a list of the richest people in the world, they didn't make their money by earning wages like we do. They made their fortune by owning a company that's worth a lot of money. The problem is, these companies don't make profits on their own. So if capitalists want to expand their business at all, they need to hire workers. That's where you and I come in. Workers produce all the value in the economy. But there's one issue. If workers were paid the full value of their labor, there'd be nothing left for the capitalists. There would be no profits. Hopefully you're starting to see the fundamental contradiction here. Workers always want to be compensated as highly as possible for their labor time, and capitalists always want workers to put in more hours for lower pay. Not because they're evil, but because they have to maximize profits in order to compete. In other words, the interests of the workers and the interests of the capitalists are directly in conflict with each other. So maybe you're starting to see why taking money from organizations like the 1630 Fund is so compromising for media personalities who claim to be on the left. Because anyone who claims to be on the left should be representing the interests of the working class. And that's awfully hard to do when you're getting bundles of cash from the very people opposing the interests of the working class. So, what should we do with all this information? Now, I've seen a lot of commentary from liberals claiming that this story is a distraction or that speaking up about this is dividing the left. I don't agree. Anyone who watches my channel knows that left-wing infighting is the last thing I'm interested in. That's not what I do. This isn't about dividing the left. It's about defining the left. And I don't know about you, but my definition of the left definitely doesn't include secretly taking dark money to shill for millionaires, billionaires, and corporations. So, just to review, we've exposed how creators are being paid off by a secret dark money operation. We've defined the proper role of the left, and we've covered why it's such a big issue for supposedly left-wing influencers to be paid off by the same groups they should be opposing. But here's the catch. This story goes way deeper than just one media payout program. In fact, it cuts straight to the heart of why the left is losing so badly these days. Because the same dynamic I just described is playing out everywhere on the left. Now this part is gonna get pretty deep, but I promise I'll bring it around in the end. You know, I've noticed something fishy lately, and maybe you've seen it too. For a party that acts so concerned about saving democracy, the Democrats seem awfully comfortable with our society being run by corporations and wealthy elites, don't they? The worst part is, this isn't a bug, it's a feature. Let me explain. The reason the Democrats struggle so hard to come up with messaging that actually resonates with people is that they're structurally prevented from doing so. For example, when it comes to housing, why is it that we can argue for months about whether to call homeless people unhoused or people experiencing homelessness, but simply building affordable housing is never on the table? Easy. Because solving the problem would require confronting landlords, developers, and the owner class more broadly. But playing language games and talking around the problem does not require confronting the powerful. This is how the left ends up being full of all this radical-sounding academic jargon, which ultimately does nothing, except alienate regular people, of course. And this dynamic has massive downstream implications for how the left operates, because it prevents Democrats and their consultants from understanding the uncomfortable truth. That their message is unpopular because their platform is unpopular. They still think they can spin their way out of this problem by funding pro-DNC slop that, to quote Taylor Lorenz, fundamentally does not challenge power, does not challenge capitalism, and ultimately does nothing to change the barbaric system that got us here. This isn't a messaging issue, it's a structural issue. As long as they keep propping up centrists who act like Trump is some kind of aberration rather than a symptom of our broken system, they will continue to lose. As long as they keep catering to their billionaire donors over hardworking people, they will continue to lose. As long as they prefer safe, controlled creators who are irrelevant outside of the DC consultant bubble over creators who have organic reach, who have genuine charisma, who can speak freely, they will continue to lose. The Democrats and pretty much every Western left-wing party are getting steamrolled online because they fundamentally don't understand how it works. The reality is, trying to control who gets a voice online is like trying to hold back the tide with a broom. For better or for worse, there are no gatekeepers on the internet. I don't have a platform because some party bureaucrat gave me a rubber stamp. I have the platform I do because hopefully people can see that I'm trying to live out my values and that my analysis is solid and that Chuck Schumer is not directly behind the camera pointing a Glock at me. So, let's return to the big question. Why is the left losing? Why are the Democrats historically unpopular with their own voters? It's not because Democratic strategists are dumb. I've met these people. They've asked me to work for them, in fact. And the truth is, they're generally intelligent, nice people. But they've made a devil's bargain because they tied their paychecks to the Democrats. And that has made them fundamentally out of touch because they don't work for the people. They work for the donors. So that's why the left continues to fail. For the same reason that this influencer campaign was bound to fail. Because what passes for the left in much of the West is nothing more than controlled opposition. and everyone can see right through it. Being on the left means fighting for the working class, and you can't do that when your party or your nonprofit relies on the patronage of the ultra-wealthy. So if you're someone who cares about the left succeeding, the big question you should be asking yourself right now is, what would need to happen for the left to start winning? To answer this question, it would probably be a good idea to start by looking at the two most recent political successes of the left: Bernie Sanders and Zoran Mamdani. Now, what separates these politicians from everyone else? All you need to do is apply this simple formula: follow the money. Remember what I said earlier about how mainstream Democrats work for their donors rather than their voters? Bernie and Zoran don't have that problem because their voters are their donors. That means they have an incentive to fight for the working class, and they're in a financial position to actually do so without compromise. That's why these politicians are so magnetic, because whether you love them or hate them, you never have to guess about what they actually believe. They can talk with moral clarity and conviction rather than just spitting out focus group talking points. Because of their independence, Bernie and Zoran are some of the only truly left-wing candidates in politics right now. Even though they're working within the system rather than taking a revolutionary route, they're still on the left. So just to summarize, the left is defined by fighting for the interests of the working class, and the left wins when it draws its strength from the power of the working class. If you're not fighting for the working class, you're not on the left. And if you're not getting funding and support from the working class itself, then you're going to have a hard time fighting for the working class. So the big question that remains is, how can we apply this insight to left-wing strategy more broadly? In my opinion, the lesson is clear. If the left wants to win, it needs to rebuild independent working class institutions. Historically, this has meant three things, and I'll go through them in order. The first component is a strong labor movement. Typically, this looks like organizing in the workplace. But it's not just about getting a higher percentage of workers to join a union. It's also about making existing unions more militant. Because when workers are unionized, we can bargain collectively, which gives us much more power than we would have had individually. But a labor movement is going to be pretty limited in its abilities if the left can't build this next institution. I'm talking, of course, about a labor party. When the labor movement is strong, workers can exercise their power in individual workplaces. But with a labor party, workers can exercise their power as a class. A labor party and a labor movement go hand in hand. Without a labor movement, the labor party won't have any leverage. But without a labor party, the working class won't be able to express itself collectively or put pressure on the state. You need peanut butter and jelly to make a sandwich. But here's the thing. Neither of these institutions matter if the working class can't assert itself culturally. And that's where the third component comes in: labor media. Now we've come full circle. I know I've spent this whole video criticizing the left, or at least the Democrats, but it goes without saying that the right is way worse. I mean, like, a bunch of their top influencers just got exposed for basically taking hundreds of thousands of dollars directly from Russia. Problem is, that strategy has kind of worked for them. I mean, let's face it, the left is getting crushed when it comes to online media. The problem is, we can't beat the right by just copying their tactics, nor should we want to. That's why I'm coming down so hard on this whole 1630 Project dark money thing. But in a weird way, this story about democratic dark money should actually inspire you a little bit. Because the fact that they feel the need to pump millions of dollars into producing more of this sterile regime media shows that they're losing control of the narrative. It means there's an opening for an insurgent left to call out the BS from Republicans and Democrats and win over the millions of everyday Americans who have given up on politics. And I'm not going to lie to you, building independent media, rebuilding the labor movement, creating a truly working class party is going to be hard. Nothing good in life comes easy. The silver lining is being independent will allow us to say things that the mainstream media on both sides can't. And truth will always be more magnetic than lies. I have to believe that. History has shown that genuinely independent, genuinely left-wing media must be powered by the working class itself, whether that means being attached to a labor party or simply being user-funded. If you think my channel is a valuable part of that effort to build independent left-wing media, you can support my work on Patreon, or check out any of the other free resources I have linked in the description. Also, because I want to see independent left-wing media succeed, I'm opening up a couple coaching calls for people who are looking to start or grow their channels. Again, completely free. I just want to use my skills to help us win. That'll be in the description as well. Until next time, a better world is possible.